Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Sri Damodar Janani, Lord Damodar's mother, by His Holiness Shivram Swami. We're reading from chapter, is it 10? I've completely forgotten. What chapter is it? I think it's chapter 8, isn't it? Anyway, I'll recheck for all of us. Mukam karoti vachachalam, pangum langayate girim yat kripatamam vande Shri Guru Deenatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. So we have been reading from chapter 9. Krishna fells the Arjun trees. So we've been reading that in this chapter 10, Krishna fells the Arjun trees. Krishna has managed to slide the, we can't use the word Krishna has managed. Krishna has actually gone between the two trees, and the two trees were sharing the roots. They fell down, and as the trees fell down, the two sons of Kuber, Nal Kuber and Manigriv, they appeared fully clothed, because Narad made sure of that. They appeared in front of the Lord with the clothes on. And the Leela, we have read it in the earlier chapter before, that they had upset Narad Muni, so Narad Muni had cursed them, but this curse was for their benefit, and they have, after long austerity, being stuck in the trees forms, they have reappeared as themselves. After a moment, Krishna dropped the rope into his lap, receiving the sign of encouragement. Nal Kuber and Manigriv again bowed their heads, folded their palms, and with voices like rolling thunder began to speak. O Krishna, O Krishna. Hearing his name, Krishna looked up. O Lord, our being cursed by Narad Muni was but your plan to free us from a life of sin, and our being freed by you is Narad's causeless mercy upon us. We deem that everything has been rightly done, and we offer you our obeisances again and again. Krishna flashed a mischievous smile and in a silky voice replied, Why are you two exalted demigods paying respect to me, a naughty cowherd boy tied to a mortar? O Lord, you may be tied to a mortar, but you simultaneously liberated us. Cowherd boys cannot do that. Only the master of mysticism, the supreme Lord person can do so, and you are that supreme person, the knower of everything, past, present, and future. Krishna clapped his hands and laughed. Why make up the fanciful tale of me being the master of creation? Can you not see who I am? Nal Kuber understood that Krishna was enjoying their exchange, and he happily obliged. Long ago we heard our father speak of your glories. He cited many authoritative texts that revealed the original form of the Supreme Lord to be one of a Gopa. What text did you hear? The Brahma Samhita, for example, in which the Creator states, Ishvara Parama Krishna. Krishna is the supreme controller of all controllers. There are so many persons by the name of Krishna. Manigriv replied, There are, but there is only one who tends to Surabhi cows, who is served by many gopis, and who plays the flute. Krishna turned his head sideways but said nothing, yet a nod of his head indicated that he was curious to hear what else the demigods had to say. Since Krishna seemed to acquiesce to Manigriv's claim that he was a supreme lord, the two brothers began to glorify he who now sat before them with innocent expression of an inquisitive child. O Lord, you have mercifully liberated us, and that is befitting, for you were the ultimate cause of our bondage. Are you suggesting that I am responsible for your misdeeds? Nal Kuber answered, We are the immediate cause of our misdeeds because we misused our free will. But because you are the time, the instigator of all action, because you are the creator, the ingredient with which action takes place, and because you are the controller, the ultimate permitter of action, You are the remote cause of our conduct. Krishna smiled, you mean I did everything and you are both free of all offense? That is not our stance. O Lord, we take responsibility for our mistakes, but because scriptures say that you are the material cause of everything, Pratijana, Drishtan, Anuparudhat, we think that we are worthy of your grace. In other words, it was Krishna's plan that Narad curse the two demigods and they appear as trees in Gokul so that he could liberate them as a part of his pastime. Are you saying, Krishna asked, but because I am material cause, I am composed of the modes of nature? Oh no, they replied in unison, you are untouched by goodness, passion or ignorance. There is not slightest trace of these modes in you. For your form is absolute subtle consciousness. You are the most sublime. Krishna distractedly pulled them and then gently kicked it away. The demigods shook their heads in praise. Indeed, you are so subtle that for we who are bound by transformation, you are practically invisible. Because you are the origin of both intelligent and the senses, they cannot perceive you, but because you are endowed with the natural quality of mercy, you have made yourself invisible to us. Manigriv added, however, devotees who are transcendentally situated know you, or at least they know something of your unlimited qualities. Watching Krishna play with the mortar, the demigods were momentarily confused. Here was the person who remained unfettered by the ropes of nature, yet who was tied at the waist by his mother. They muttered, who can understand this? Whether on earth or in Vaikuntha, Krishna's pastimes remained a mystery to all. The Devas pondered what they were seeing. He is unlimited and spread everywhere, yet he sits here in the form of a child. He is the most sublime form of eternity, knowledge and bliss, yet his waist is bound by a silken rope. In their bewilderment, the demigods just shook their heads and kneeling before Krishna said, we cannot understand your lordship, and in trying to do so, we become confused and disoriented. Therefore, it is better that we simply offer our obeisances unto you and chant your names and glories. Krishna stopped playing and turned his full attention to the demigods. You are right, I am the Supreme Lord, but if you fail to know me, then how can you say that I am who you think I am? Krishna's words were enigmatic. They were like the words of welcome with which Lord Narayan confused the highly intellectual Kumaras. Nal Kuber and Manigriv were even more bewildered. Seeing their plight, Krishna took mercy on the brothers. He expanded to them his Samvit Shakti, his potency of cognizance, and empowered them to appreciate a spark of his splendor. Their bodily hair erect in ecstasy, tears gliding from their eyes, the Devas sang, Yasya Vatara Jnanayante Sharireshu Asharirinaha Taestair Atulya Tishayer Viryer Dehishva Asangatah Sabhavan Sarvalokasya Bhavaya Vibhavaya Cha Avitirno Amsha Bhagena Samarpatam Patir Ashisham. Appearing in bodies like those of an ordinary fish, tortoise, hog, you exhibit qualities impossible for such creatures to perform, extraordinary, incomparable, transcendental activities of their unlimited power and strength. These bodies of yours, therefore, are not made of material elements, but are incarnations of your Supreme Personality. You are the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, who have now appeared with full potency for the benefit of all living entities within this material world. Nal Kuber added, we infer your supremacy by your unparalleled deeds as they're unveiled by incarnations like Matsya and Kurma. Krishna nodded his approval. Nal Kuber continued, since your incarnations, the avatars, can be identified thus, so can you, the sources of all incarnation, the avatari. Since your carnations, the avatars, can be identified, thus so can you, the source of all incarnations, that is the avatari. Krishna asked, on what grounds do you draw that conclusion? Now it was Manigriv's turn. Enlightened, he was eager to praise Krishna. Confined to three bodies, we stood here for almost 20,000 years, and by Narad's grace we had full consciousness of your beautiful land. But in these past few years, since your appearance in Gokula, we have seen you kill Putana, Tranavrat and Shaktasura. These were not ordinary feat. feet. Nalkuvera interrupted. Recently we saw you reveal the universe in your mouth, and now you have uprooted our 3 bodies, a feat that even 1,000 men could not accomplish. Even at this moment, we see you transmit supernatural strength, indeed even life to the rope and the motor. Therefore, we can say with confidence who you are. Together they concluded, O merciful one, whose instructions bless the earth with auspiciousness and whose pastime shower Gokula with love. As residents of this land, we too have seen blessed in these ways, and so we remain in your debt. Eternally, obeisances to your charming childlike lotus feet, touching the helmets to the ground again and again. Nalkuvera and Manigriv were choked up in ecstasy, and for a few moments they remained speechless, feasting their eyes on the sweet beauty of Damodara. Gradually the demigods rose to their feet, wiped away their tears, and looking around saw the cowherd boys staring at them with obvious amazement. Looking at each other, the brothers thought, no doubt the crashing of the trees will soon bring the Vrajvasis running. It is better that we leave now. Demigods are not suited to this lands of Gopa. Turning back to Krishna, they said, O Lord, please give us permission to depart, but before we do, please give us some instructions that we can hold in our hearts, some order that we can fulfill. Whatever you instruct, we shall do, but let us always remain followers of your servant, Lord Shiva, our Guru Narad Muni, and the Vaishnavas. After a pause, they added, and let us be servants of your cowherds. Krishna raised his eyebrows. That is a service very rare. Nalkuvera replied that we know, but by Narad's grace we can see you, which is equally rare. If we as offenders have obtained that is unobtainable, then now as your devotees, what will not be possible by the grace of Narad? Pleased with their humility and the intensity of their desire for Braj Bhakti, Krishna said, you are disciples of Narad, go to him, and by my grace he will fulfill your desires. But because I am pleased with you, you may now ask me for a boon. Nalkuvera and Manigriv looked at each other smiling, and then at the upturned soles of Krishna's pinkish lotus feet with quaking voices. They said, O Lord, if you are pleased with us, then bless us with pure devotion and mastery over the 9 limbs of bhakti. Bless us that our mouths always sing the divine attribute of your lotus feet, of your affection for your devotees, of your beauty. Bless us that our tongues never touch the subject of yoga or sacrifices, what to speak of sense enjoyment. May our minds be absorbed in your pastimes and divine nature without wandering to other things. May our 2 ears incessantly and attentively hear topics about you, including how you empowered Brahma to create. But please do not let our ears be attracted to mundane sounds that have no pure rasa. May our hands and bodily limbs be always engaged in service to you, especially to your deity form and to your devotees. May we repeatedly bow before you with all 8 limbs of our body, and in that way may we offer respect to all living entities, for you are their origin. But in offering our obeisances, may we always think of the people of Raja, even though we may be distant from them. The 2 demigods passed for a moment. They wanted to ask Damodar personally appear in their homes, but then they thought it inappropriate. May our eyes always rest on your deity form, on your devotees, and on Shalagram Shilas. Nalakuvera, Manigriv, and had especially wanted to perfect the practices of sadhana, so they did not specifically ask for the perfections of friendship and complete surrender, but silently they wished that these would be the result of their sadhana or included in their meditations, just as servitude was included in their kirtan. Remembering the importance of kirtan, the 2 added, because by chanting your names all other senses are happily engaged, and because it is most pleasing to you, may we be blessed with such special taste that comes from your Sankirtan, a sadhana to which there is no equal. Krishna smiled very sweetly. He had listened to Nalkuvera and Manigriv's prayers, but there were other things going through his mind. Krishna thought, they are glorifying me as a Lord, but I am shackled Lord. To top it off, Lord that I am, I remain tied to the motor of all things. Krishna smiled. Smile widened further. Krishna's smile widened further. The demigods were unsure whether he was pleased with them or deriding them, and so they became a little fearful. Seeing their reaction brought Krishna's smile to a chuckle, but the brothers could not share it. That made Krishna begin to softly laugh. Hey, hey, hey. He picked up the rope and began to play with it again. Finding the condition of being bound up increasingly humorous, he thought, these are not real ropes, but the bonds of my mother's prema. I am bound by her love. These demigods are bound by my Maya. Although they call me the Lord of Gokula, I am tied like a calf. What kind of Lord is that? And while they praise me, the scolding of mother is so much more pleasing. Reflecting on these contrasting situations, Krishna was beside him with laughter. His sweet voice rang out to his still immobile friends who thought whatever he is doing, Krishna is having a good time. And Krishna was indeed having a good time, absorbed in the mellow of humor, hasyaras. Krishna found everything funny and laughed freely, but when he caught sight of the confused demigods, he thought, they must think I'm ridiculing them. That is not nice. They are devotees, so I should respond by speaking to them. It is not fair that I play while they are waiting to leave. Besides, it is my duty to encourage everyone, not just the Vrajavasis. And since I am a resident here, they are like my guests and they should be treated with kindness. Nal Kuber and Manigriv are fortunate to have been so blessed by Narad, and I am so obliged to him. Thinking in this way, Krishna softened his laughter to a smile directed by the Devas, putting them at ease and reassuring them that he approved of their prayers, pleased with the two demigods for having recognized that Narad was the cause of their good fortune. From within their hearts, he made them feel great joy, and so they too smiled. Clearing his throat, Krishna mercifully replied, your past life and Narad's kindness to you were well known to me. Had Narad not desired it, I would have never shown mercy to your offenders. That would have been contrary to everything I stand for. The two brothers lowered their heads in shame as Krishna continued, as I am all good, so are Vaishnavas. Whatever they do is always beneficial. You are drunkards and braggarts, blind to the meaning of life, but Narad was kind to you regardless and awarded you punishment that would bring you to your senses. Indicating the trees lying on either side of him, Krishna added, Narad took away the source of your blindness, which was your wealth. What wealth do trees have beside their flowers and fruit? And as you stood here steadfast, you became sober by remembering his wonderful instructions, beginning with Nahi Anyo Jashato Joshan Buddhi Brahmasho Rajo Gunaha. The demigods were astounded that Krishna knew their past down to its finest detail. He remembered every word said millennia ago. Seeing their wonder, Krishna smiled wildly. What was not possible for him? In this way, Narad's words brought you sobriety, but more than that, closeness to my pastimes and my devotional service. Those were his real blessing. Krishna stopped for a moment as he meditated upon Narad's love for him. When he thought of how Narad sacrificed the bliss of being with him to preach throughout the universe, Krishna closed his eyes. As they flooded with tears, Nal Kuber and Manigriv could understand that Krishna was feeling excessive love for their guru, and the two became teary-eyed. After a pause, Krishna said, Narad's mercy began by appearing before you. His curse was just an extension of that mercy. The demigods were puzzled by what they had heard. What did the Lord mean? Reading their thoughts, Krishna replied, just to see a sadhu is a blessing. To see a well-behaved saint who is spiritually realized and undisturbed by praising or infamy slackens the bonds of material existence. But Krishna paused for emphasis and even tapped the mortar at his feet. To see a soul like Narad, the sadhu who has offered his mind completely to me and is always absorbed in thoughts of me, material bondage is severed forever. Again Krishna paused. A sadhu can only give as much mercy as he has, although one can see even before sunrise. Complete vision comes when the sun has risen. Continuing to speak about Narad, Krishna felt as if his tongue was dancing of its own accord, but a blessing greater than seeing my pure devotee is had by hearing from and conversing with him. Even hearing and chanting my glories in their absence does not bestow such merit. Krishna thought to himself, and how wonderful, even though these rascals offended Narad, because of his devotion to me, he continued to bless them with the highest good. Remembering the rudeness to Narad, Krishna turned to the demigods. By seeing Narad, you two have already been freed of material bondage, therefore asking me for mercy is gratuitous. Had you not seen Narad, you would not be seeing me, hence your suffering would have continued. Krishna felt that Nal Kuber and Manigriv needed to be warned not to commit Vaishnava Aparadha again. Although they were now liberated and unlikely to offend, Krishna still wanted to instruct them and through them the world. Just as the sun destroys the darkness by rising, one's bondage is destroyed immediately upon seeing a pure devotee. However, just as a blind person will remain in dark wherever the sun may be, similarly offended like a demon cannot be liberated, not even if he sees Narad Muni, Krishna added, or if he is liberated, he will take a long time. Krishna became silent and there was a lengthy pause. It was time for Nalkuber and Manigriv to go. The cowherd boys were restless, trying to free themselves from the invisible bonds, and the Vrajavasis were coming to their senses and would soon be searching after Krishna. Krishna was uneasy and the demigods could sense it. Raising his right hand in a gesture of blessing, Krishna said, O Nalkuber and Manigriv, you may both return home, where your family is eagerly awaiting you. Turning to Nalkuber, the elder of the two, Krishna said, as for your desire to be always absorbed in my service, I assure you that it will be fulfilled in a way that your domestic life will not pose an obstacle. Feeling very humbled by his mother's bonds of love, Krishna did not think himself capable of blessing the two devas. He thought, whatever they want will be fulfilled by Narad's desire. Out loud, he said, by the grace of Narad, you have developed prema for me and thus attained the topmost goal of life. Keep his grace, Narad Muni, always in your heart, and because I am always in his heart, you shall never be separated from me. Krishna then added, your material existence has now come to an end. Nalkuber and Manigriv were heartbroken. They would have to leave the Lord. Their legs became numb, their eyes welled with tears, and they began to perspire. They could not leave, but they did not want to leave, but they had to, as much as out of desire for another few moments of association as gesture of respect. They circumambulated the Lord, but who was tied to a mortar. Their senses empowered by prema, the two demigods drank in Krishna's sweetness through their eyes, ears, and noses. Still, they could not get enough. Gradually, they circumambulated the area where Krishna sat, repeatedly bowing not just to the Lord, but to the mortar and the rope, saying, Namaste Stu Damane Sfurad Deepti Dhamne Tvadiyo Dayartha Vishwasya Dhamne. O Damodar, obeisances to the rope around your belly, obeisances to the splendorous, effulgent abode sheltering the entire universe, your belly. Finally, Krishna stopped them with a loving glance that said, please go. Bowing down one last time, the demigods turned and rose into the sky. As they did, they sorrowfully looked back at Vrindavan, which had been so long their home, and at the two trees that had been their shelter. Having lived in Gokula for millennia, its every nook and cranny was ingrained in their hearts. And that is where Vrindavan would stay in their hearts, and in Vrindavan that would always serve that wonderful little child who they once saw bound to a mortar by his mother. Traveling north, the direction served by the devotees, the demigods dutifully returned to their planet, where they would join with their demigods in the Sankirtan of Krishna's name and pastime. And with this, we come to the end of chapter 10. Krishna fells the Arjun trees, and we also read the last verse of the Damodar Ashtakam, the 8th verse, where these demigods, they said that to Krishna. Namaste Stu Dhamane Sura Deepti Dhamane Tvadiyo Darayatha Vishwasya Dhamne Namo Radhikaya Cha Priya Namo Nanta Leelaya Devaya Tubhya. So we will continue with the reading of chapter 11 next time. Nanda Maharaj releases Krishna, and it's been a pleasure reading through this chapter, and I wish you all a very happy Damodar month. We just had the Govardhan Puja yesterday, and one more week, and then we will be entering into the Visham Panchak, which are the last 5 days of the Kartik. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.